Coach JC Deacon, welcome to the Coaching Beyond the Scoreboard series on the Mindset Advantage podcast. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thanks for having me, DJ. This is an honor, man.
Awesome. I want to take it back to 2014. You're 31 years old and you just got handed the keys to the Ferrari of Florida men's golf. Take me inside your mind. What was going through your head when you were 31 years old and you got handed those keys?
Yeah, it's a neat story. I was actually in the airport. I was the assistant coach at UNLV out in Las Vegas at the time, and was in the airport picking up a recruit and his family. We were hosting a visit at the time, and my phone blew up, and it was a Gainesville, Florida number, and picked it up, and Jeremy Foley was on the other line. And he said, "I believe in you, and I'm picking you to be my next men's golf coach." And obviously, a lot of emotions kicked in, a lot of excitement. You start planning ahead. But to be totally honest with you, I got home when the dust settled a little bit. My first thought was, man, I can't screw this up. This is such a storied program with such an amazing alumni who have worked so hard. Buddy Alexander, who came before me, legendary Hall of Fame coach, put so much time and effort into making this place great. And I didn't want to be the one to bring it down. And I've always had a pretty strong fear of failure. And that was kind of what kicked in that moment that, man, you better work harder than ever before to make sure, you don't mess this opportunity up.
And the team before you got there was, I want to say, dead last in the conference, if my research is correct. And you had a very quick turnaround in the first couple of years. But sometimes when a coach comes into a program, whether it's college or high school, even though they have the right intentions in mind, sometimes just bringing a new vibe can turn some people off and you can get met with some resistance. Coach, what were some of the early challenges that you had when you tried to bring in kind of a new vibe and a new winning mentality? Was there anybody or anything that got in your way, or was it smooth sailing right away?
Definitely not smooth sailing, but I think that was the best advice that I received through the process from so many different people was you got to go be yourself. I am not Buddy Alexander. He was I think probably maybe in his late 50s at the time, very established, very serious, type of person, and I was 31 years old, full of energy, full of enthusiasm, and that's what I had to come and be. This was a new challenge for me and obviously the opportunity of a lifetime. And that's our first year here. That's literally all I did was just try and be the most energetic person in the room every single day and make sure that the guys had a great time and a great memory. We were struggling a little bit at the time. I think they finished maybe ranked in the low 80s the year before I got here. And I just tried to make sure everyone had a great time and had a lot of fun. We tweaked some rules, maybe tried to get them to play a little more golf, let them take golf carts, just some things to make everyone's lifestyle maybe a little bit easier and a little bit more fun. And it paid off. I mean, these guys responded, and I'll never forget that our first tournament, I think we beat one team. We were in dead last at the farm up in Georgia going into the final round. And I told the guys in the room, I said, I've never, ever in my career finished last in a golf tournament, and we're not doing it tomorrow. And they went out and played a good round. We didn't finish last, and we just rallied ever since then. And everyone got on board, got a lot of help from the seniors. And Alejandro Tosti, who's a great player on the PGA Tour, he started in the spring for us, and we kind of just took off, and it's been an awesome journey ever since.
It seemed like one of the intentions that you tried to bring right away, Coach, was an energetic and a fun vibe. I've heard you say on another podcast that happy athletes are effective athletes. Now, I think it's easy to be happy and energetic when things are going well. But when you stepped on campus, things weren't going that well from a statistics standpoint. How do you help create a happy environment or happy athletes when things might not be going well?
Yeah, I think, just you got to lead by example. And that's the biggest thing, I think is a head coach's responsibilities. And I've learned a lot. And this is my 11th year at Florida now, and I've had to get a lot better through the tough times too. But if you show up happy every day and you bring that energy every day and the enthusiasm and the excitement about what can be achieved, with a lot of hard work and a great attitude, the guys start buying in, and these guys did too. We had some neat freshmen. Ryan Solano, I remember him. He brought a really great energy that year too, and was always smiling and laughing and loved the game. And it wasn't easy. We took our lumps. We got beat up pretty good at times during that season. But by the end of it, I'm still as proud of that team as probably anyone I've ever had, because you're right. We were down and out, and we weren't very good at times. But they made it all the way to the national championship. We got to play in the finals, the top 30 teams in the country at concession, and we actually played pretty well the first round too. We were in contention and then fizzled out a little bit. But I think as a coach, it's your responsibility. Everyone talks about culture a lot. And the mood of the coach, I think, creates a lot of the culture. And that was my goal that first year, was I was going to be the most energetic, the most optimistic person in the room every single day. And it starts to rub off on everyone that, wow, he kind of believes we can be pretty good. We need to start believing that too.
As you know, we're in this series called Coaching Beyond the Scoreboard, and I've had a chance to talk to 6 or 7 incredible Division I college coaches. And what's been so cool from my point of view, JC, is to be able to see and pick the threads. And one of the threads that just popped out was one that you said, is that you need to, as the leader, the head coach, you need to model the behavior that you want to see from your student athletes. It needs to
Yeah.
start from the top. And
Yeah.
I think that's such a key point. What I'd like to kind of double click on is, when is it hardest to do that? When is it hardest to show up as the energetic and the fun guy? When is it hardest, and how do you overcome those harder times?
Look back in my career, and I still am. It's inside me. I'm a very emotional person. I'll wear my heart on my sleeve, for a lack of a better term, but the guys know where I'm at all times, are used to. And I just realized that had to stop. And I have to credit him. It's hard for me to do this, but Mike Holder, who's a great coach, probably the greatest college golf coach in our history, at Oklahoma State University. I think he won, I don't want to say too many, but anyways, a lot of national championships, close to double digits. And I had a really powerful conversation with him in 2017. We had a great team that year. We were ranked one, two, three, four all year long. Had a couple superstars at the top of the lineup, and we fell flat on our face at the national championship. We didn't even end up making the final round. We only played 3 days out of the four. And I asked him that summer if I could speak to him on the phone, and if I could get his thoughts about what he saw, in me and our program, and what I could do to get better. And I remember we spoke for probably an hour on the phone, and I did all the talking for the first 55 minutes. He'd ask a question here or there and nod or say yes. And at the end of the conversation, I said, a lot of the time when we're struggling, or things like this happen, I feel like it's my fault. And he said, because it is. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, man, you're way too emotional to coach 18 to 22-year-olds. And it was really, really hard to hear from someone that I looked up to, and obviously had such a tremendous career of his own. But he was bang on right. And I had so many highs and lows, and my guys could see it. And that's not great leadership in my opinion. And yes, there's gonna be moments, and you want to be true to yourself. And I like celebrating with my guys, but especially in the bad moments, to really get onto the answer of your question. I think you've got to model the behavior that you want your players to have. And in golf, adversity's coming, no matter what, no matter how good you are. Tiger Woods, whoever it happens to be, adversity is coming your way. It's just a hard game. You get bad breaks. You get bad weather, whatever it happens to be. And I wasn't modeling the behavior that my guys needed to have on the golf course. And after that conversation, I'm not perfect, far from it. But I've really made a pointed effort to try and be more neutral, especially in the tough times when the team's not playing well, when our ranking's not where it is. And then, we hired Dudley Hart, who's my associate head coach. This is his fourth year now here at Florida, and he played on the PGA Tour for a long, long time and went through all those ups and downs. And he's the first one to admit that, his highs and lows and how hard he was on himself probably held him back in his career to what he ultimately could have been. But he had learned through all that. And Dudley taught me a lot just watching him that, if you create a routine and a process for tournaments and results, that no matter what happens during that weekend, you're going home and you're gonna get back to work. And there's one tournament of the year, the national championship, where that changes. The guys kind of go off on their own after that tournament, and it's up to them to control their moods and attitudes. But hopefully all year, you've trained them to handle it a certain way. But it's true. I just believe in a great attitude, and I believe in working really hard. And whether we win a tournament now or whether we finish 11th out of 15 teams, that Monday morning when we get home, it's not changing. We're still going to get up early. We're still going to go to the gym. We're still going to go to class. We're going to practice as a team. We're going to do all those right things. We're going to evaluate our performance and try and get better. So it doesn't really change. And that kind of took a lot of pressure off me that, yeah, obviously I want to do well. I want to be successful, but the routine's not going to change whether we win or finish 11th. And so that's been a really positive way for us to look at things and to help me control my emotions a little bit better. I constantly remind myself, if this goes our way today, we're still going to be doing the same thing on Monday. And if it doesn't go our way, we're just getting back to work. So that part of it never changes.
I think how athletes and coaches respond to feedback can be a tremendous competitive advantage. I think the best coaches that I've been around on this podcast or in person are the ones that are seeking out feedback and not giving pushback. So they're literally at the top Division 1 national championship coach, but they're still trying to get better, and they're willing to get on the phone with somebody else and ask for the feedback. I think that's a tremendous lesson. And no matter where you're at, continue to look for the feedback. How did that sit with you when he told you that? Was it right away like, thanks for the feedback, I'm going to go work on it? Or were you kind of pissed, like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, what was that initial response like?
I was really upset
Yeah.
because I went on a recruiting trip to Oklahoma State. I at one point in my career I wanted to play for Coach Holder, and it didn't end up happening. But I always watched from afar at how successful he was. And then when you get into coaching, he's kind of the gold standard of success. And it was really really hard to hear that, and it ticked me off. But when I had some quiet time on my own, and I started thinking back to my early years at Florida when we had some really great teams with Sam Horsfield and Andy Zhang and these great young players. I was way too emotional, and we had these huge swings of great play where we were unstoppable, and then we'd play terrible at some really big moments, and it was my fault, and I had to get better. And I'm really thankful that Coach Holder, I don't even know why, he had that conversation with me. Essentially he was the athletic director at Oak State at the time, I believe, and he was helping his competition. But I'm super thankful for it. I think you get into these positions sometimes, and I'm so lucky to be the head coach at the University of Florida. But everyone tells you you're doing a great job, and wow, that's awesome. You guys won a national championship and won the SEC, but you need those people in your life that aren't afraid to tell you what you need to get better at. And Jeremy Foley's another one, the athletic director who hired me at Florida. He was really, really great about that, and it wasn't often. He's very encouraging and very optimistic himself. But when you slipped up, he'd let you know. And there was a couple times in my young career that Jeremy got me pretty good and set me straight. And I'm so thankful for those moments in my career. It's helped me grow.
So if my math works for me here, it sounds like you had that conversation between 3 and 4 years into your career at Florida, which I could assume saved you probably 13 or 14 years. You got a lesson very early in your Florida career that I'm sure helped you down the road. I want to help the coaches that are listening right now. Coach JC, what's the conversation look like? How do you know if a coach is too much in their emotions and they can't regulate them like maybe you had trouble with before? I'm thinking of the coaches listening right now going, is that me? I mean, I'm not really sure if that's me or, how do I know? What's the signs and symptoms that a coach is too emotional?
Well, I think that you're going to see it the most when things aren't going well, when there's adversity. And I would constantly wake up with a pit in my stomach. I'd come to work with a pit in my stomach, and I was almost embarrassed about how we were playing or how our guys were performing. And once I started to look in the mirror a little bit more and maybe think, hey man, this is you. This is the lessons that you're teaching them. You're controlling 20 hours of their week every week, and getting into routine. Maybe that routine's not good enough. And it's when they can tell. Obviously, my guys know me so well. We've got a really small team. We only have 9 or 10 guys now. You spend so much time with them, and so they know me very well. They know when I'm upset. They know how competitive I am, and I think that's the thing that started to really click was that I thought back to my time in college golf, and obviously I didn't want to play bad. No one wants to play poorly. So I didn't need to pile on. And, maybe you're driving from a poor performance to the airport and you don't say anything, and you're out of character. Like those are the little cues that your players pick up on. Like, what's his problem? Obviously, I didn't want to play like this, and that stuff was happening to me a lot. And sometimes it's hard for me. I think our voice as a head coach, it probably means more to your players than you even realize or think, and you got to be really really careful with your words. And I am very optimistic and I am very positive, which I think is helped me get to this position. And that's what I want to leave my players with now. That's the message through anything. Like my favorite people in my life, my dad's number one on that list. He can go through the most difficult things, and he's gone through one recently here. He thought it was the end, and he was having to have this heart surgery that they told him they didn't think they were going to be able to perform, and he was literally going to have weeks to live. And his response to that was incredible. And he just said, "Look, I've lived the best life. I've been the luckiest to have this family and have you people around me at this point in time. And there's nothing else for me to do." And that hit home so hard, because sometimes it's poor me and you're mad at your players for not performing, but that's not true. And it is on me as the head coach. I always gotta be remember how lucky I am and how grateful I should be to be in this position. I was listening to one of your podcasts, and I remember hearing someone say, there's a million people out there who would want my job. And I need to treat it like that every day, with that same excitement and enthusiasm of those people that would love to be sitting in my chair. And my dad's situation was such a great reminder for me that no matter what you go through and the adversity that's inevitable, especially in golf, that's such an up and down game, how you handle it really defines you. And I still have a long, long way to go. Trust me, I'm not even close to a finished product, but I'm going to continue to work at it and get better, and hopefully continue to handle adversity in a way that my players can be proud of and they can learn from.
Coach, you're giving us an absolute masterclass here, only 20 minutes into this episode. Let's continue to kind of go through your career here. So, for those that aren't familiar, 2023 was a big year, national championship. What I want to talk about though before 2023 is 2022. Oftentimes, before a national championship or before a big time championship, it's kind of the year before that somehow, some way sets up the next year. And I don't know the answer to this question. I'm not trying to find anything out here, but I'm just curious. Talk to me about the year before the national championship. championship, how did that perhaps set you up for the big one?
Oh, it certainly did. There's no doubt about it. Our core four players, Ricky Castillo, Yushin Lin, Fred Biondi, and John Dubois, they all played pretty much every tournament that year. And at that national championship, I remember I'll never forget that we Kid on Oregon on the ninth hole, which was their 36th hole of the tournament, made like a 45-foot putt to bump us out of the morning wave in Scottsdale, Arizona. And the key with the morning wave out there was they have this overseeded grass, so they have to water it heavily overnight in May in Scottsdale because it's so hot, or the grass will or burn out and die. So it was a huge advantage to play in the mornings at Greyhawk because the course was so much softer and you could control your ball a lot more. And this kid made this bomb putt on his ninth hole or his 18th hole, which was the ninth hole, and knocked us into the afternoon wave. And only the top 15 teams make the final round. So everyone thought we were dead. And we had an amazing team meeting that night, and our guys did not lay down. And it's still today probably the best round I've ever seen a college golf team play that next day. We were in the afternoon, in the wind, in the firm greens, and I can't remember exactly what we shot, but we made the cut. And we had this amazing finish on the last hole. We had some guys chip in, and it was incredible. And it was a bonding moment and an experience that I'll never forget, and I don't think they'll forget. And the next day we played okay. We ended up finishing ninth or tenth and didn't make the match play. But I think playing that well under that much adversity and in stressful situation gave them a belief for that next year that took us to another level. And Coach Dudley Hart and I got better at our jobs and figured out how far the ball was going. And then we went there a year later, and there was just a feeling about it that something special was happening. It was really scary 2 weeks before at the NCAA Regional Championship. I love this about college golf is no one gets an exemption to the national championship. If you're ranked number one in the country, you have to go to the regional championship and qualify, finish in the top five teams to earn your spot. And we were in sixth place with one round to go, and I think we were 7 shots behind fifth place. I mean, we were a long way out of qualifying for the national championship. And it was a similar feel to that day a year prior in Scottsdale. And our guys played unbelievable. Yushin Lin shot a great 66, and all the guys stepped up, and we eventually made it and qualified and earned our opportunity. And then that kind of took the shackles off. They were playing really free, and we all could feel it. Something great was happening. They were all seniors. We had won the SEC championship, I think, 5 weeks prior to that, and they just all five of them. Matthew Kress was a freshman at the time and had earned his way into the lineup, and just a week we'll never forget that culminated in a national championship and something the eight of us who were on that trip will have for the rest of our lives and be able to share together.
I love seeing the smile on your face as you relive those memories, Coach. That's you can't make that up. The theme here is that oftentimes the setback creates the comeback. And so you look at any professional sport, oftentimes the team that makes it to the semifinals, the AFC Championship, the Western Conference Finals, and they lose, they're usually one of the best, highest predicted teams to make it back to the finals. Oftentimes you have to lose at the highest level in order to feel what that feels like, create the body armor, and then come back and win it the next year. Usually you just don't go from a not a playoff team to go winning the whole thing and then repeating. It's very, very rare. So I'm curious on what was the body armor? What were some of the things you guys needed to learn or go through that helped you kind of become stronger mentally, physically going into the next year? Was there anything in particular that you knew you had to go through in order to get to where you wanted to go?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that question. It's a great question, and I think the most important thing for a college coach or high school coach, or especially the players that are doing it. And I wish more than anything that I was better at this exact thing when I was a young coach. You have to have failure. That is what sculpts you and makes you who you are. And I was always trying to avoid it. and I was embarrassed by it and I hated it. And I have come to realize those are the moments, some of my most heartbreaking moments in my college coaching career are of what helped me grow into who I am today. And I've talked about it too much already, but golf is just full of adversity and hard times. It beats everyone up along the way. And if a young player and young coach can come to understand that you need those moments to become better, and you need those moments to become tougher and to learn, and you need that pain. When it's really, really painful, that's when I get my pen and paper out and start writing as much as I can. And what's hurting, and I can always look back at those things and learn so much. And that team that won that national championship, we had really been together for 3 years. That core of the team, those four guys that I mentioned earlier, and the ups and downs that we had been through together. Holy smokes! Just fights and arguments between the guys, between the players and coaches, tough times in school, tough times in the gym, injuries, all those things that happen. That's what makes it special, and that's why I look back at that video. I try and watch it every once in a while. But there was a lot of tears on that 18th green when we were all celebrating together, and that's what truly makes it special is when you go through those difficult times with people. And I think this is, goes for my family too. My wife, who's Jessica, who's my favorite person in the whole world. And, I think she has seen me at my lowest and been there through me in those most difficult times. And that's what makes the bond even stronger. And I was really tried to hide those and avoid those things early in my career. And now I know it's so important and it's such a vital ingredient to great teams to have tough times and to have failure. And if you can communicate and be open about it and be vulnerable and try and get your players to be vulnerable and come up with solutions as a group, man, it's powerful what can happen.
Let's double click there. What's your favorite strategy to help your student athletes not fear failure or overcome failure, or perhaps have a better relationship with failure?
Yeah, that's a great word is relationship. It's just talking about it. And we try and give them an hour or two. Both Coach Dudley Hart and I played competitive golf. I didn't play at his level on the PGA Tour. He makes fun of me. He won as many Canadian Opens as I played in, but we've been there, so we try and give them an hour or two after they play where we don't really talk about golf or what happened. We'll let the guys kind of guide the conversation. But then every night, we're going to address some of the things that we saw, whether it's in qualifying or at tournaments. And those communicating through the tough times is the most important thing. And I really did shy away with it when I was young was, man, he doesn't want to hear me say that, or he doesn't want to hear this criticism, or he doesn't want to hear this from his teammates. You need it. It's so, so important. And I think you gotta continuously get better at your delivery. I still need a lot of work in that area. Sometimes I come off very judgmental, which I don't mean, but like I said earlier, I think our words are very powerful and our players are listening. And you do have to be careful how you approach failure and how you approach adversity, but you got to talk about it. And especially at this age, you want them to see, wow, I shot 80 today. And my coach is not mad. He doesn't care. We're still going to dinner and laughing and having a good time. And we're going to address it and we're going to find out why that happened and how we can get better going forward. But he's still the same. And he's still going to get up tomorrow morning and be excited about my golf and our golf and the team. And I think that's kind of really helped me take a big step as a coach.
The subtle strategy in there, coach, that I really enjoyed was you said, I try to wait at least an hour before we get into it. I want to talk about things other than golf for the first hour. For the coaches out there, how can they decipher between I need to coach, give feedback right now in the moment, or I need to wait, give it some time, maybe even tonight or maybe even tomorrow? How do we know? It's probably very situational, but how do coaches know whether to attack this now or this is something we should wait on?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I'm not perfect with that, and you're reminding me of a great story from last year. We were in that regional championship where, for the first time all year, your season's on the line, and so final round at Purdue up in Indiana, we hadn't played great the first 2 days, so we were kind of on that border again and had to have a really great round. And we woke up and the weather was horrible in the morning. We had the trifecta we call it. It was cold, it was raining, and it was really windy. And in those conditions, I'm a big believer of trying to keep things simple. And we're on, I think, the 13. I'm on the 13th hole with Parker Bell, and Ian Gilligan, who was our best player at the time, is on the 14th tee. And I watch him hit this crazy tee shot where he's just trying to hit such a hard shot, like a low draw with a driver into the wind, which, for an expert golfer, it's one of the really, really tough shots to hit. And I remember I sprinted up there as fast as I possibly could, and I got right in his face. And I go, dude, what did we talk about last night? We got to keep things simple. And that golf swing I just saw is the furthest thing from simple. And Gilly and I laugh about it now. It's funny now, but I was pissed in the moment and probably let the emotion get the best of me. Not sure that was the best approach, but he ended up playing great the rest of the day, and it did help. But I'm personally, for me, I think it's probably more of a me thing. I'm trying to avoid that. I don't want that moment. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want my player to see me like that. And that's what that hour or 2 hours after, that I purposely, just let them talk about the round. And I'm gonna try and not make any judgmental statements, just soak in everything I'm hearing, and then go have dinner, relax a little bit, and then we have our team meeting later that night. That's when we can get into the coaching part. And I think the other thing I realized is, when someone has a really, really disappointing day, that hour or two after, are they really even hearing you if you're trying to coach them? I just don't think they are. They're so worried about, who's going to find out about this, or who's thinking whatever thoughts are going. There's so much disappointment there. I don't think the coaching's effective anyway. So it's kind of a win-win if you give it a little time. But some coaches are great. Like, I think Jay Wright, well, I'll never forget that video when they won the national championship.
Cool as a cucumber, man.
Right. He walked over to shake the other coach's hands, so calm, and just finally put his hands up. And I am so envious of that, how he could be that calm and cool in that moment. But I try and keep that vision of him in my head all the time. That, not as much maybe in the championship winning moments. That was amazing. He could do that. I probably don't even have the power to do it, but I want to look like him in the bad moments. And when I'm hurting inside, and I want to have an outburst, I want my guys to not know what's going on through there. So, but it's tough. It's a never-ending process of trying to learn and trying to get better. And it's awesome. So lucky to do this job, and be in a sport where you can't ever perfect it.
Another piece you said that I'd love to double click on is the power of delivery. And as you can tell with this coaching series of Coaching Beyond the Scoreboard, I'm not really interested in X's and O's. I want to know about what it's like to be a transformational coach. And I think the most transformational coaches out there are experts in their delivery. You said this is something that you're working on, but what I'd be
Yeah.
curious to know, coach, is what is your advice, or what have you learned when it comes to having difficult conversations with your athletes? And what I mean by difficult conversations is not necessarily, yeah, they didn't play well, and now I got to address that they didn't play well. I mean more of like, hey, today you're not in the starting group, or maybe you're not fit for this program, or what's going on with you and another, something along those lines. What have you learned from having successful, difficult conversations?
Wow, it's definitely the hardest part of the job, for sure, because when you become a head coach of a major program like this, or there's millions of them out there, they're inevitable, and they're coming. You're gonna have those tough conversations, and I didn't really have to do it. My boss, Dwayne Knight at UNLV, I played for him and then got to coach for him, and he was incredible at it, and he was always so calm and straight to the point. And I always marveled watching him, how well he handled really difficult, tough conversations. And it is tough. I think it's one thing I struggle with maybe the most because I remember the relationships I used to have with my players when I was an assistant coach or an early head coach at Florida. I was really, really close with them. And, they were almost like little brothers and really close friends. And I have seen a little bit of a gap form as I'm getting older and I've learned more and maybe a little bit more mature on my end. And I think where that gap comes from is that those conversations and those difficult moments are always one decision away. And they're 18 to 22 years old. And there is a very high possibility they're going to make some bad decisions throughout their career. And you always hope that you can come back from them, but we've had some in my times here at Florida where you can't. And I have to be the one to deliver the news. And when you can have, maybe a little bit of a gap there in the relationship, it's funny. It's such a tricky balance because I want to be myself. I want my players to be their selves. And, obviously when you spend this much time with people, you get really, really, really close with them. But in the end of the day, I'm just gonna be the bearer of bad news at times. And Coach Knight set a great example, and I've just been so lucky in my career to be around such great people who had others' best interests at heart. And compassion's a great word, empathy, always trying to get better at those things. But yeah, it's tough because it is coming and the delivery is huge. And it's hard because a lot of the times you really love these people. And my guys right now, especially the way our program's gone the last 3 or 4 years, I have so much respect for every player on this roster. I watch them chase their dreams right in front of my eyes every day, and what they're putting into it is amazing. And they're so far advanced from where I was at that age, and watching that is it's inspirational how incredible they are. And having to deliver tough news and have those tough conversations is really, really hard with guys who you respect and admire so much. But it's part of the job, and something that I would advise every head coach to attack head on and continue to grow and get better at.
That's great advice. I want to go back to 2023 one more time. So, national championship. Not a lot of coaches can say that in any sport. Coach, what did winning a national championship teach you about you?
Wow. Well, the first thing that comes to mind with that question is so when I rewind back to 2014, September 2014, I walk into my first coaches meeting at the University of Florida, and you got Roland Thornquist, Tim Walton, Mouse Holloway, Mary Wise, Brian Shelton, all these absolutely superstar coaches, the best of the best in all of the nation who had won national championships, achieved everything you possibly could. And I remember them leading some coaching conversations, and they're like, "Man, it's not going to feel the way you think when you win." And I'm like, "What are they talking about?" Like that's crazy. Like if I can somehow take this program, we're here at this point and we can win a national championship one day, that's going to be the greatest thing that ever happens to me. And it is crazy because you win and you get up the next day and the world ain't stopping for you. And you still got to recruit and you still got to run a program. You still got to make schedules for next year. And it doesn't stop. And everyone else is trying to get better. And you winning probably motivated your competition even more. And I just remember probably the coolest part about it is no one can ever take that away from us. We have that accomplishment together, and that's in stone forever. And we've got those rings to prove it. And that's been the most special part of it is no matter the different ways and avenues that we all go in our lives going forward, we're all going to share that moment and that accomplishment together because we really did come so far. We were 2021, we were a really immature young group who made so many mistakes. And then fast forward 2 years later, they played under the highest pressure and played some of the best golf that I've ever seen and won a national championship, on national television. And that was really special, and we'll always have that. But you win, and it's like, all right, I got to get back to work, and it's not a finish line. It's just a journey or a stop on your journey. And I did think it was probably going to be more. Um, but you get back to work, and it's wild. They were so right in what they said in that room, and I wouldn't change anything. I loved it so much, and we're right back in that mode. One of our big rivals, Auburn University, won the national championship last year. And I felt the motivation watching them win. That was hard to watch them win. And I'm happy for Coach Kleinert, who's such a hard worker and someone that I really look up to now. But watching them win, that was tough and re-fired me up. I needed that to watch them win and get fired up again about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. And we got a great team now, and we're rolling into that postseason as we speak. So I'm super excited to see what our guys can accomplish.
I can't help but think about what that must have been like, Coach. Sitting with some of the legends at the University of Florida around a round table, and they've won national championships, and they look at you in the first meeting and say, it's not going to feel like you think it will. I mean,
Yeah,
wow, that's some powerful words coming from people that have been there, not once, but dozens of times through the
yeah,
combination of all of them. It's powerful.
yeah. Yeah, it probably wasn't the first meeting we were getting to know each other, but when they started to get to know me and maybe hear how result oriented I was and how hard I was chasing it. That's when, Tim Walton's been incredible to me in my time, but at Roland Thornquist too, they just said, man, it's not going to feel the way you think. And it's amazing because there's just such a tradition of success at Florida. A lot of people, when you win those championships here, the first question they ask is how we looking for next year? When's the next one coming? And that happened to me through that process. And you do realize that maybe it's not what you build it up to be. But man, the journey getting there and the maturity that I got to see in those guys who were able to play at that level to win it, that's what I cherish the most. And I know it's so cliche to be in the moment and be in the present and enjoy the journey, but man, there is nothing more important than that. And I'm going back to my dad again, but that was, I was asking him when he was thinking he was on his deathbed. He just said, man, you got to enjoy the journey. Enjoy every day. Wake up excited and soak up what you're doing. And he's just so right because we chase these championships and these things that we think are the be all and end all in life, and they're just a stop on your journey, through time. So pretty powerful stuff, and not taking anything away from it because it is so special in that bond that we're going to share. I think about it all the time that we'll always have that together, but we're right back in the rat race now, trying to win another one.
There's such power in being present, whether it's playing the game of golf, coaching the game of golf, or living life with kids and whatever else, wherever else you are in life. There's power in presence. I would love to hear if there's a strategy, coach, that you have for your golfers to live in the present one shot at a time. I would love to hear if you have a strategy for you personally as a coach to be present and be right here. It's clear that that's important to you. Learning from your dad is kind of the be where your feet are. What's the strategy that you stow upon the golfers? What's the strategy that you use to be where your feet are and be present? I'd be so curious to know because it's something I'm working on too.
Number one most important thing in my entire life right now is being in the present. There's no doubt. And I have three young kids, Dylan, Sydney, and Rip, 9, 7, and 3. So we're right in the thick of it. And as a dad, being present is the most important thing I can do. And I'm terrible at it. I've got to get so much better because you're thinking about recruiting or you're thinking about this guy's game and how you can get one shot better here, one shot better there. You wished you did this last week, or you're going to change this next week. And it's hard to turn off the coaching part. But man, my kids, our 9-year-old Dylan, she's halfway through her life under our roof. And that's really scary for my wife and I when we think about that. And how many moments are you missing when your face is buried in your phone, or you're reading something, about your job, trying to get better. And then when you get to the golf course, there is no greater skill, like you said, than being in the present moment and focusing on your next shot. And I'm constantly working on that. I mean, breathing is that best way for me to do it. And literally being in the moment. Sometimes if when I start getting really forward thinking and result oriented thinking, I'll just describe what my eyes are seeing. That grass is this shade of green, or that is this kind of tree, and really, legitimately talk myself through the present moment that I'm in. And that helps make that other stuff go away. But I think to be in the present, you got to be a great listener as a coach. You really need to, instead of thinking three moves down, you got to be listening to what your players are saying. Big part of how we run our program here is we're essentially caddying for our guys at times, and we have the advantage of not being emotional in those moments. And golf's such an emotional game, and our guys are still young, learning how to control those emotions, and they get extremely emotional. And we have the advantage of being pretty calm and clear, so we can help them make better decisions and hopefully learn. But it's a constant battle for me at work and at home to be in the present. So I'm open to any tips that you have for me as well.
I think we're both in that same boat because we're constantly wanting to improve. We're constantly wanting to get better. We're constantly on this chase. And that's what makes it difficult. But I think what I have learned is that the better you can turn off the light, the better you can turn it on. And that's something that I've thought about a lot recently is the better I can turn it off, the better I'm going to be when it's time to turn it on. And then I'm not living this, if you take the analogy, this kind of this dim light kind of a life where I'm a little bit here, a little bit there. Instead, it's either on or off. So that's something that I've kind of taken with me. I'd be curious from some of the best golfers you've been around that have exemplified a high level of presence. What does that look like? Is it a breath before a shot? I kind of like to get in the weeds a little bit of the mental game, but what does it look like for some of the best golfers to take one shot at a time versus looking ahead?
Yeah, it's just I know it's a constant battle for them. It really is. But I think developing the best advice I would have with that is your pre-shot routine. And it's funny because when Dudley got here, our associate head coach, he was so crazy about routines, and at times I'm like, man, he's nuts. Like, what is he talking about? But he was so right, and I'm so glad that he brought that to our program. He's really helped get us better in this specific area. But you've got to have a great routine, because your process leading up into a shot, if you really dive into it, the lie, the yardage, the wind, the shot you want to hit, how you want to feel over the ball, all those things that you have to take into account. If you really dive into that, it does keep you in the moment. And that's all we want our guys to do is dive into that process, pick the right shot, and then commit to it. And if you do that, we swear by it. If our guys do that, Dudley and I are going to leave the tournament being happy. We will never, ever get upset with you for shooting 80. But it's when you let your emotions control you, and your body language is all over the place. Your teammates can see you acting like a donkey. And we know when you're acting like that. Luke Poulter, who he won his first college tournament last week. I'm so proud of him. But we had a moment on the 10th green in the second round. He made his first bogey of the tournament on his 28th hole. And he was so worked up about the bogey and the bad chip he hit that he struggles with this. His mind stays in the past, and it doesn't give him the best opportunity to hit that next shot to the best of his ability. And it's hard in golf because you do attach so much meaning and importance to each shot that it hurts inside. But I really believe the more I do this job and the more I get a chance to spend time around the best amateur golfers in the world, the ones who are the best, who have constant, consistent success, they have an ability to let go of the past. And they have a wonderful ability to focus on what is now. And every junior golfer, every parent, that's what you need to be focusing on. And this is for the parents out there when you're reacting to your son's or daughter's shots and they can see you reacting, stop. You are not helping them. And it is holding them back way more than you can ever imagine because how can a young man or young woman be expected to be calm and rational and present moment thinking when they see their parent up there disappointed about a shot they just hit? And so it goes back to leadership. I think parents need to be leaders, and especially in sports, you need to conduct yourself the way you want your son or daughter to conduct themselves while they're playing their sport. And I was terrible at it, like I told you before, when I got this job. And I think that's one thing that I've really, really improved. If it's a bad golf swing or a bad shot, my players are never going to see me be disappointed. But I will get very upset if you can't control your emotions and you have a lack of maturity where you can't stay in the present moment because that's controllable. And if you can't control that, you're putting us coaches and your teammates at risk. And that's one thing we demand of all of our guys. And they're not perfect at it, but we're getting better. And I think that's why our level of results has gone like this because that's one thing we put a lot of focus into.
And kids at really any level, you could talk about a 4-year-old up to a 22-year-old at the University of Florida. They see it. They
They
see
see
it.
it.
And we might think because we're 100 yards away, they don't see it. I promise you, they see
Yep.
it. And it will either drastically improve or negatively affect their performance and their attitude and their relationship truly, not only with you, but with the sports. I'm so glad that you highlighted that. Coach, as we close down, this is the Coaching Beyond the Scoreboard series. I want to just end with asking you, what does it mean to you to coach beyond the scoreboard?
Oh man, that's what I'm trying to live my life by. And I've never heard that term until I heard your podcast, but the most important job I have here at the University of Florida is one, they got to get their degree. They've got to have that in their back pocket to have that backup for the rest of their life. And number two, probably just behind that, maybe 1A, is they've got to have a great experience. And what does a great experience look like? And I think that's going to be different for every coach. But I want my guys every morning. This is how I define it. Is so and so excited to wake up and be here at the University of Florida? And I want the answer for every one of my players to be yes. Do they have a safe, fun, optimistic, energetic environment to walk into? And that's probably the thing I'm hardest on with my staff and our guys is you've got to remember that you have an energy about you and your attitude is going to affect everyone else's experience here. And we police that and coach that really hard because if you have an environment where everyone feels safe, feels comfortable, feels excited, feels motivated, man, it's crazy how much you can achieve and what you can get out of these players. They're capable of so much more than even they believe sometimes when they're in that type of environment. So that is, other than making sure that they get their schoolwork done and get that degree, them having a great experience and being excited to wake up every day, there's nothing more important to me than that.
Coach, this was so much fun. I learned a ton. How can my listeners best support you and your program?
Well, golf, sometimes we feel like is the forgotten sport, maybe on the bottom of the totem pole in the NCAA, but it's going to be televised here the next 6 weeks. You know, the SEC championships on the SEC network every year, and then the national championship is on the Golf Channel. So just tuning in and getting those ratings up will help us. But there's a lot of talent, and for those golf fans out there, You look at what Ludwig Aberg is doing right now, played in the Ryder Cup. He's winning on the PGA Tour consistently. He was a college golfer 2 years ago. And it happens really fast, and you get a kind of sneak peek at what the future of golf looks like when you're watching college golf. So just watching and supporting and getting involved is all they can do. But we've got a great sport and a lot of great talent, and the game college golf has never been in a better spot. So I'm super excited to see what happens in the near future here.
Awesome. Coach, thanks for your time and go Gators.
Go Gators! Thanks, DJ.